There's going to be opportunities early on where if Berlanga fights without fear and he goes right after Canelo and has an idea that I got nothing to lose here, we might have some interesting moments early on. And the fight could be way more entertaining than people think. I don't think Edgar's going to go out there and just lay down. I think he's actually going to fight and go out on a shield the way he's saying. And we know how Canelo's going to respond.
Boxing pros have revealed their prediction for the upcoming fight between Edgar Berlanga and Canelo Alvarez. Diego Pacheco will be a keen observer when Canelo Alvarez and Edgar Berlanga collide next month. Pacheco, identified as one of the best prospects in world boxing, returns to action this weekend when he faces Maciej Sulecki, once again live on DAZN. Victory for Pacheco will move him closer to a big shot, and he's had his say on how next month's fight will play out. I think Canelo will stop him, said Pacheco when speaking on Matchroom's Flash Knockdown podcast. I think Berlanga will maybe do better the first 3 rounds. I feel like once Canelo has found his rhythm and has found Berlanga's timing, he'll get him out of there. Robert Garcia believes that Canelo will knock out Berlanga, but he's unsure which round it will happen in. He acknowledged that Berlanga is a good fighter with power and said to let him earn his money, but Garcia ultimately thinks Canelo will take control of the fight and come out on top.
Okay, what's your prediction?
I think Canelo knocks him out.
What round do you think?
I don't know what round.
Berlanga has power.
Berlanga has power, and Berlanga has game too. He's, I'm not trying to say he's not good or he doesn't deserve it. He got it, and
let him make his money.
Let him make his money. Let him make his huge payday. But I think Canelo wins.
Garry Jonas, who previously managed Berlanga and now serves as a supporter to the fighter while he trains at Jonas's ProBox boxing facility in Plant City, Florida. Jonas shared his thoughts about Berlanga being in the ring with Alvarez. He stated, "Berlanga will be a live dog. He won't run. He's going to go for it. If he goes down, he'll go down fighting and put on a show." Promoter Oscar de la Hoya took aim at Edgar Berlanga, Devin Haney, and his usual target, Canelo Alvarez. He kept up his criticism of Berlanga over his claims of being Puerto Rican. De La Hoya mentioned that Berlanga got upset when he said Berlanga isn't Puerto Rican, and even challenged him to show his birth certificate to prove his heritage.
Edgar Berlanga, I called you out for not being Puerto Rican. I simply spoke the facts. So you got embarrassed and posted a 14-year-old photo of me that the world has already seen and memed 1,000,000 times. Bro, why didn't you just post your birth certificate from Puerto Rico? Unless you don't have one. Don't tell me you're another lame who is offended by the truth. Come on, bro.
Perhaps he wanted to save the best for the last. Calling out Canelo Alvarez, he said, "As always, the most important topic of every week. Canelo, you." Promoter Steven Espinoza believes Edgar Berlanga will be a tough opponent for Canelo Alvarez when they exchange blows in the ring. Espinoza thinks both contenders are determined to secure victory. Speaking to Boxing Scene, he said, "Both fighters showed a bit of spark, some fire, some emotion, and you clearly got the sense that Berlanga is not a guy who is there just to show up, that he's motivated, that he's not intimidated, and all of that really helps because when you've got a guy as experienced and as accomplished as Canelo, one of your big challenges is convincing people that his fights will be competitive." Angel Garcia said he can't predict the future, but he believes Edgar Berlanga has a chance to prove himself. He mentioned that Berlanga should stay focused on the fight and be ready for what comes next, instead of worrying about people criticizing or talking trash about him.
I can say he's going to lose the future, but he has a great chance like anybody else does. So you got to give him credit for that. So Berlanga want to be that rock star. He got to be on his A game. His game got to be 100. You can't focus on. You can't focus on what they say, she say, and none of that. That don't matter. They talked about Jesus and crucified him and spit on him, and he still forget all of us. So they're always going to talk about you. The thing you got to be focused here. If he's focused here, he has a great chance.
Eddie Hearn expects Edgar Berlanga to do his best when he fights for the world titles against Canelo Alvarez. Berlanga will be defending an unbeaten record next month, but despite the step up in weight class, Hearn believes that his man will give a hard time to Canelo Alvarez. Edgar respects him. He knows how great Canelo is, but he believes he's going to win, and he's an underdog, said Hearn when speaking to the Stomping Ground. "I'll tell you what, he'll have a right go, and it's a dangerous fight for Canelo Alvarez, and I'm looking forward to it." Eddie Hearn praised Canelo Alvarez for agreeing to fight Edgar Berlanga and said that Berlanga would step into the ring aiming to win. He pointed out that Berlanga has a simple, aggressive fighting style, always looking for a knockout rather than just trying to last the fight. Hearn compared Berlanga's power to Canelo's, saying both are known for their hard-hitting, knockout-seeking approaches. He also hyped up the Puerto Rico versus Mexico rivalry, highlighting how important the fight is and how exciting it will be for boxing fans.
And yes, it is Puerto Rico against Mexico, but it's deeper than that. This is an opportunity of a lifetime for Edgar and his father. He's dedicated his life to the sport, and I promise you he will give every inch of his soul in Las Vegas. Tom is right, this is going to be a wild week. Canelo Alvarez weeks always are. Incredible scenes, but remember one thing, this guy is here to fight. This guy is here to dethrone the king.
Caleb Plant believes that this is the world of boxing where anything could happen. He said that he doesn't see Edgar Berlanga winning against Canelo Alvarez, but also expects the unexpected.
So, is there a possibility that you think Edgar can beat Canelo? Or
I mean, I don't see it, but, you know, anything's possible in the sport of boxing. I'm sure we've seen crazier things, so, but no, I don't see it.
Before his victory over Israel Madrimov, Terence Crawford already shared his verdict on the upcoming clash between Edgar Berlanga and Canelo Alvarez. He said that Canelo will win, as he thinks Canelo is more experienced. He also praised Berlanga and said that he can do better in the future, but right now, Canelo is too much for him. I think Alvarez stops Berlanga, Crawford offered during a recent interview with The Stomping Ground. I think Berlanga is head over heels with this fight, he continued. I think Berlanga can be a great champion someday. I just think, right now, Canelo is just too much for him. Teddy Atlas said that he's sharing his honest opinion on the fight. He thinks that he wasn't surprised when the fight was announced, and he believes that Berlanga is a young and talented fighter with an undefeated record, but also said that Berlanga is a little inexperienced at this level.
And listen, it's not a knock. I'm here not to make friends. I'm here to state things that I believe are based to the truth in this business, or attached to the truth. He's the guy who can handpick who he wants to fight. In Berlanga, I wasn't surprised. No, I'll be honest. I wasn't surprised at all. I figured he was the front runner. He's got an undefeated record. He's coming off a good win. You know, he's a young, talented fighter. But he's an inexperienced fighter at this level.
Trevor McCumby believes that Canelo Alvarez would beat both David Benavidez and Edgar Berlanga. The undisputed super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez has been connected to potential fights with both of them when he's expected to return to the ring in September. In an interview with Boxing Scene, super middleweight contender McCumby shared his thoughts. I think Canelo knocks him Berlanga out in 6 rounds, he said. I don't think Berlanga has the seasoning and the ring IQ to take that, but I'm happy he is potentially getting that opportunity. If I'm to put my money on the line, it's a bit hard, man. McCumby further commented on David and Canelo. David doesn't really have the bounciness and the footwork, but David has a high work rate and he can't stand in front of you, so maybe it's hard to say. I'll probably put it on Canelo, but then again, you just don't know what the age is as well. Canelo Alvarez and the choice of his opponents this year, needless to say, have been rather puzzling for the fans. His loyal fan base would have preferred to witness him going toe-to-toe with heavy-handed David Benavidez. But first, they got a Cinco de Mayo fight in Jaime Munguia, and now for their annual Mexican Independence Day treat, they have Edgar Berlanga. Benavidez, who had been Alvarez's mandatory for over 2 years, ended his disappointing chase with the Mexican champion, as he decided to stay put at 175 and challenge for the gold. He had been devoid of the same at 168 because Alvarez never yielded to the fans' demand. In a conversation with Two-Toned Superstar, Benavidez at 29-0 expressed his candid view of Alvarez versus Berlanga. Not only did he slander the fight, but also threw a shade on the Mexican champion. He said, "It's a trash ace fight. Nobody wants to see that. But at the end of the day, Canelo doesn't face the strongest opposition." In the same conversation, Benavidez shed light on being mandatory for Alvarez, which the WBC never enforced against the super middleweight champion. Speaking with a tone of discontent, the orthodox boxer said, "I have been his mandatory for the last 3 years. I can't force a man to fight me. It shouldn't even come to a position where you have to activate your mandatory. What's the interim title for? That's basically activating your mandatory. At the end of the day, I gotta move forward with my career." The fight between Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez was so hyped and expected that boxing superstars already gave their predictions on the bout. The baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson, had given his prediction as he said that he is a big fan of David Benavidez. He stated, "Benavidez is my guy. I think he can beat anybody in the division. I love Canelo, but he's not going to beat him. He's a little past his prime. I think he could even beat the guy who beat Canelo, Dimitri Bivol." Many more pros had shared their thoughts on this bout, like Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather thought that Canelo should be tested against a fighter like Benavidez instead. He said, "If it were up to me, we'd want to see Benavidez face Canelo. It's time for Canelo to stop cherry-picking opponents and take on a real threat like like Benavidez. Floyd also thought that Canelo should face David in order to cement his legacy even further. Benavidez is a hungry lion, and Canelo needs to step up to face him if he wants to prove he's truly the best. I respect Canelo's accomplishments, but dodging Benavidez only raises questions about his willingness to take on real challenges. But unfortunately, Canelo versus Benavidez didn't take place and was called off. Canelo Alvarez's decision to defend his undisputed super middleweight championship against Edgar Berlanga on September 14th has to signal for David Benavidez to give up his pursuit of the Mexican star Benavidez. It's a bitter pill for Benavidez to accept that he's been wasting his time hounding Canelo, but he needs to understand that there are no opportunities for him. He's not in Canelo's plans. Another potential opponent was Terence "Bud" Crawford. Crawford's main issue was that he wanted a huge paycheck, but he didn't really deserve it because he's not as famous as Canelo. Over his 16-year career, Crawford has only had 2 big fights, one against Israel Madrimov and another against Errol Spence. Terence Crawford versus Saul Alvarez fight was still on the table for a possible negotiation until Turkey Alalshikh expressed discontent with Alvarez. Alalshikh recently announced he is not pursuing a much-anticipated fight between Alvarez and Terence Crawford. He wrote in his ex-post, "Just wrapped up an important meeting now with my team, planning for the upcoming fights that we will make for 2024-2025. I decided to disregard the Canelo fight as I don't want it anymore. Instead, I will be focusing for the US market with bigger fights, especially for the legend Crawford." Canelo also expressed dissatisfaction with the way Turkey has spoken about him and asserted that his current success is due to his own efforts, not because of anyone else. He implied that if Turkey wants to work with him, they need to align with his terms, not the other way around.
Wait, take it easy. My response to Turkey is this. Yesterday, they text me. They text me and say, we can talk about the fight in February with Crawford. Yeah. They text me yesterday, and I say, look, I'm not gonna talk about any other fight. I'm focused 100% on this fight. Look, I don't like the way he talk, and I'm not in this position because of any. I'm in this position. If he wants to work with me, it's in my way, not in their way.
On Wednesday, Alalshikh responded to Canelo's comments by saying that Canelo's respect doesn't matter to him. He explains that Canelo dislikes his business approach because he focuses on significant fights at fair prices, which Canelo, who prefers easier bouts, finds unappealing. He wrote on X, "I heard what Canelo said, that he respects me but doesn't like the way we do business. As for him respecting me, it doesn't matter to me if he does or not. As for the way I do business, I know why he doesn't like it, because I only target big fights at fair prices, so of course anyone who likes easy fights won't like that. And I know how he feels after losing to Bivol, so he's been looking for easier fights ever since. Also, I'm not the one who's afraid of fighting Benavidez or Crawford." He further wrote, "Therefore, I knew he was wasting our time and making excuses with big amounts of money that can't be paid. So I'm continuing my way to make big fights that serve the boxing world. And he's on his way to making easy show-only fights." Coming back to the potential fight between Edgar Berlanga and Canelo Alvarez, Canelo Alvarez gave Edgar Berlanga short shrift when he discussed his next opponent's chances. The two of them fight on September 14th. Watch live on DAZN. As Canelo prepares for his second fight of the year, Berlanga is the clear underdog, but has a 22-0 record with 17 knockouts, and Alvarez is perhaps no longer quite at the peak of his powers. Alvarez is nevertheless one of the finest fighters of all time, and can be extraordinarily heavy-handed at 168 lbs, so he too poses more than a little threat. Speaking to Boxing Scene, he made it clear he was confident. "I don't care what kind of fight he brings. I'm gonna that guy up," said Alvarez. He's nervous. We need to understand that. Despite the heavy odds against him, Edgar Berlanga believes he's on the verge of achieving boxing greatness. Unlike many fighters who spend years waiting for their big moment and payday, Berlanga got his shot early in his career. From the start of the pre-fight events, he's been vocal about how much this fight means to him. As a Brooklyn-born boxer with Puerto Rican roots, he knows he's facing a tough challenge. "Boxing is tough," he said. "It is a risky sport where anything could happen. I have been training, and I am thinking about knocking him out, you know. So it's do or die now." The fight between Edgar Berlanga and Canelo Alvarez is set for 2 days before Mexican Independence Day, a weekend that Alvarez often chooses for his bouts. This time, the fight will compete directly with UFC 306, which is also scheduled for September 14 at the Sphere in Las Vegas. So, what do you think about the upcoming fight between Berlanga and Canelo? Will Berlanga be able to maintain his undefeated record, or will Canelo prove too much for him? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video.